Behind the polished veneer of perfectionism lies a terror so profound that most people spend their entire lives running from it, the terror of discovering who they truly are. We live in a society that celebrates perfectionism, that applauds those who refuse to settle for anything less than flawless execution. But what if this celebrated trait is nothing more than an elaborate mask? What if the relentless pursuit of perfection is not a sign of high standards, but rather the most sophisticated form of self-sabotage ever devised by the human mind? As a psychiatrist who has dared to explore the darkest corners of human consciousness, I argue that perfectionism is rarely about excellence. Instead, it is about fear. Fear of failure, yes, but more devastatingly, fear of success. Fear of discovering the immense power that lies dormant within, waiting to be unleashed upon the world. Because once you recognize your own power, once you see what you are truly capable of, there is no going back to the comfortable smallness of your current existence. Think about the writer who has been working on the same novel for 10 years, always finding another chapter to revise, another detail to perfect. Consider the entrepreneur who has been planning their business for years, eternally one market analysis away from launching. Or the artist whose masterpiece remains forever unfinished because it is never quite good enough. These individuals appear dedicated, disciplined, committed to quality. But I see something else entirely. I see people terrified of their own magnificence, using perfectionism as a refuge from the overwhelming responsibility that comes with recognizing their true potential. In my understanding, the human psyche is a battleground between what we consciously desire and what we unconsciously fear. And what we fear most is not our weakness but our strength, not our limitations but our limitless capacity for creation, transformation, and impact. Perfectionism becomes the perfect alibi, the socially acceptable excuse for remaining hidden, protected, and above all, small. It is much easier to say, I haven't started because it needs to be perfect, than to admit I haven't started because I'm terrified of what I might become. In this exploration, I will share my revolutionary understanding of perfectionism as a defense mechanism against our own power. I will examine how the pursuit of flawless execution becomes a prison that protects us from the dangerous territory of our own greatness. And perhaps most importantly, I will uncover why embracing imperfection might be the key to unlocking the extraordinary life that perfectionism has been quietly stealing from you. Because the question is not whether you are capable of greatness. The question is, what are you so afraid of discovering about yourself that you would rather remain perfectly paralyzed than imperfectly alive? To understand how perfectionism functions as a shield against our own power, we must first explore my concept of the persona. The persona is the mask we wear in social situations, the carefully crafted image we present to the world. For the perfectionist, this mask is impeccable. It shines with discipline, attention to detail, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Society admires this mask, rewards it, celebrates it, and therein lies the trap. I have observed that the stronger the persona becomes, the more it begins to control the individual wearing it. The perfectionist becomes enslaved to their own image of flawlessness. They cannot afford to make mistakes because mistakes would shatter the illusion they have spent years constructing. They cannot take risks because risks might expose their humanity. They cannot act spontaneously because spontaneity might reveal imperfections. But what is hiding behind this polished persona? I would say it is the shadow, the repository of everything we have deemed unacceptable about ourselves. In the perfectionist's shadow lies not just their flaws and mistakes, but paradoxically their greatest strengths, their creativity, their boldness, their capacity for groundbreaking work, their ability to inspire and transform others. These qualities have been banished to the unconscious because they are too powerful, too dangerous, too likely to disrupt the safe, controlled existence the perfectionist has built. This is where my insight becomes revolutionary. Most people assume that perfectionists are driven by a desire for excellence, but I suggest they are driven by terror. Terror of their own creative force, terror of their own capacity for influence, terror of their own potential for transformation, because recognizing these qualities would mean having to use them, and using them means stepping into the arena, exposing oneself to judgment, failure, and success. Consider the perfectionist who spends months preparing for a presentation, obsessing over every slide, every word, every possible question. On the surface, this appears to be conscientiousness, but I recognize it as avoidance. The individual is not perfecting their presentation. They are avoiding the moment when they must stand before others and reveal their knowledge, their passion, their capacity to move and inspire people. They are terrified not of failing, but of succeeding so completely that their life would never be the same. I believe that the psyche cannot tolerate this kind of split indefinitely. The energy that should be flowing into creative expression, into bold action, into meaningful work, becomes trapped in an endless cycle of preparation and revision. This trapped energy manifests as anxiety, restlessness, a chronic sense of dissatisfaction despite outward success. The perfectionist lives in a state of constant tension, always on the verge of something great, yet never quite arriving. The cruel irony is that perfectionism, which promises to protect us from failure and criticism, actually guarantees both. By never fully committing to action, by never exposing our work to the world, we fail by default. We criticize ourselves more harshly than any external observer ever could. We become our own worst enemy, trapped in a prison of our own making. But why is the fear of our own power so paralyzing? What is it about recognizing our capabilities that terrifies us so deeply? My answer is both simple and profound. Power brings responsibility. Recognizing your ability to write means you can no longer claim you are not a writer. Acknowledging your capacity for leadership means you can no longer hide in the crowd. Admitting your creative genius means you can no longer excuse your inaction with claims of inadequacy. I have observed that most people live far below their potential, not because they lack ability, but because living up to their potential is psychologically demanding. It requires abandoning the comfortable identity of someone who is still figuring things out, still preparing, still not quite ready. It means accepting that you have been capable all along, that years of preparation might have been years of avoidance. There is also the weight of expectation that comes with recognized power. Once you demonstrate your capabilities, others begin to expect consistency, growth, continued excellence. The person who creates something remarkable is forever changed in the eyes of the world. They can no longer be ordinary, can no longer claim ignorance, can no longer hide behind the excuse of inexperience. Furthermore, I have recognized that exceptional people often become targets. Society has a complicated relationship with greatness. While it claims to celebrate excellence, it often punishes those who shine too brightly. The tall poppy gets cut down. The one who stands out becomes the focus of envy, criticism, unrealistic expectations. It is psychologically safer to remain in the middle of the pack, competent but not exceptional, good but not great. This fear is compounded by what I call the inflation of the ego. Some individuals unconsciously sense that if they truly embraced their power, they might become arrogant, disconnected from others, consumed by their own importance. They use perfectionism as a way to stay humble, to keep themselves in check. But this false humility becomes a prison that denies the world the gifts they were meant to share. I also understand that recognizing our power forces us to confront time. How much of our lives have we spent hiding? How many opportunities have we missed while waiting for the perfect moment? How much impact could we have had if we had acted from our strength rather than our fear? These questions are devastating because they reveal the cost of our psychological defenses. The perfectionist lives in a perpetual state of almost ready to start, almost finished with preparations, almost confident enough to take the next step. But almost is a purgatory that protects the ego from the judgment of the world and the responsibility of success. It is a place where dreams can exist safely without the risk of being tested against reality. Yet I believe that this protection comes at an enormous cost. The individual who refuses to embrace their power not only denies themselves a fulfilling life, but also deprives the world of their unique contribution. Every unwritten book, every unlaunched business, every unexpressed idea represents not just personal loss, but collective impoverishment. So how does one begin to overcome this fear? How does someone trapped in perfectionism find the courage to embrace their own power? My answer is not to fight fight the fear, but to understand it, integrate it, transform it. I believe that the energy currently trapped in perfectionism can become the fuel for extraordinary action. The first step is recognition, acknowledging that beneath the pursuit of perfection lies terror. Terror of your own capabilities, terror of your own potential for impact, terror of living the life you were meant to live. This recognition is painful because it shatters the noble narrative perfectionism provides. It forces you to admit that you have been hiding, that you have been choosing safety over significance. The second step is accepting imperfection as the price of action. I understand that all meaningful work emerges from the willingness to be imperfect, to be vulnerable, to risk failure in pursuit of something greater. Perfection is not the enemy of excellence, it is the enemy of completion. The perfect is the enemy of the good, and more importantly, the perfect is the enemy of the done. I encourage the perfectionist to start where they are, with what they have, in whatever imperfect state currently exists. Because action, even imperfect action, generates feedback, learning, growth. It reveals what works and what doesn't. It provides the raw material from which excellence can eventually emerge. But most importantly, it breaks the spell of perfectionism and demonstrates that you can survive being imperfect in public. The third step is embracing your shadow. Instead of running from your power, I would say to turn toward it. Ask yourself, what am I capable of? What impact could I have if I stopped playing small? What would I create if I weren't afraid of judgment? These questions are frightening because they reveal the magnitude of what you have been avoiding. Finally, I believe in the importance of what I call individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. For the perfectionist, this means releasing the persona of flawlessness and embracing the messy, imperfect, gloriously human process of creation and growth. The truth is that your power is not something you need to develop, it is something you need to stop suppressing. It has been there all along, waiting patiently behind the wall of perfectionism for you to finally have the courage to let it out. And when you do, when you finally stop being afraid of your own magnificence, you will discover that imperfect action leads to perfect transformation. The choice is yours. Remain perfectly hidden or become imperfectly visible. I know which one leads to a life worth living. The question is, are you finally ready to find out what you are truly capable of? What project are you perfecting instead of completing? What dream are you polishing instead of pursuing? Sometimes the act of naming our fear is the first step toward conquering it.